Welcome to the Dental Implant Practices podcast, where each episode will explore how to integrate dental implants into your practice and into bone, with your host, Dr. Philip Gordon.
Welcome back to another episode of Dental Implant Practices podcast. I'm your host, Philip Gordon, and today it's a huge honor for me to introduce Dr. Justin Moody. I met Dr. Moody at a lecture that he was teaching in St. Louis on digital workflow, and from that point on, I've been kind of following his career and really interested in what he's doing, as he is one of the forefront leaders in implant dentistry, in my opinion. Dr. Moody, thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, hell, it's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for the invite.
So what I can do is sometimes I think I kind of butcher people's intros. So what I'd love for you to do is give the listeners maybe a little, just in case there's one or two that haven't heard of you, maybe a little intro about yourself and what it is you're doing in your practice right now.
Yeah, for sure. Again, my name is Justin Moody. I practice in Rapid City, South Dakota, where my practice is limited to dental implants. It's kind of a niche operation, as I work with about 80 some dentists on the western side of South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Montana in a referral-based practice. So they send their patients to me. I place the implants and I send them back. I probably only do about 15 to 20% of the restorations on the implants that I place. So the majority of it is surgical, but those numbers, that restorative phase is going up over time, as I have, obviously, after 8 years here, I've got friends and family that don't have dentists and stuff like that they come to me for the whole package. But I grew up in western Nebraska, in the very northwest corner. I was fifth generation to grow up on a cattle ranch. My family purchased that in the land rush in 1883. So nobody's ever owned our place other than the Moody family. And I'm the first generation to do something other than cows and wheat. So I don't have a great dental backstory. My dad, my granddad, nobody, they were farmers and ranchers. They weren't dentists. So I went to the University of Nebraska for undergrad, really just to I figured I'd go down there and party for 4 years and go back to the ranch, because nobody really done anything differently. And my old family dentist back in Crawford, Nebraska, paid, back in the day when the DAT wasn't that big of a deal. He paid for me to go take the DAT test. So I took it, didn't think anything about it. And then when I was going into the guidance counselor, to try to get a plan to graduate and get the hell out of there, I remember him looking at me and he said, well, what do you get, what schools you got to apply to? And I was like, schools, well, yeah, what dental schools you got to apply to? He goes, there's probably 400 people on campus that would die to have the score that you just got. And I was like, oh, well, all right. So I give her a run, and I applied at just the big ones in the area: Lincoln, Nebraska, Iowa, UMKC, Oklahoma, just places that I could get to, maybe a little bit easier, and Colorado. And hell, I turned them in and I got accepted. And I think I chose Oklahoma. They were the first people to send me an offer. And then when I went down to interview for them, they really only wanted to talk about Nebraska OU football, because we used to play after Thanksgiving back in the day, and in the old Big 8 days. And it was a new school as compared to all the rest of them. Their first class didn't graduate until 76. So there wasn't a lot of legacies there. Matter of fact, there hadn't been a legacy that had gone through there yet, because the school was so new. So I gave Oklahoma a shot. I packed up, moved to Oklahoma City, and never looked back. So I got out, moved back home to my hometown, and it wasn't very long after that I realized that there's no way that I was going to make partials and dentures for the next 40 years. That wasn't going to cut it for me. I watched my partner, line after line after line of people, for denture adjustments and partial class and all that stuff. And I'm just like, there's got to be a better way. And the only ABOI diplomat at the time in the state of Nebraska was also from my hometown. He practiced in Lincoln, Nebraska. His name was Roger Plooster. And he called me up one day and he goes, how's it going out there? And I was like, well, I said, it's going. I said, I'm doing a little farming with my dad and, fixing some damn teeth. And he's like, you got to get into implants, right? And I said, yeah, I know. I said, it's just, it's how do you get after it? I mean, how is you as a young dentist now, how can you take the time to go to these courses, and take the money and this and that. And at the time, in 1997, the only show out there was Carl Misch. That was it. I mean, there wasn't anyone else teaching this. Hell, they weren't even teaching it in the schools. So he said, you come down, spend a day with me in Lincoln, watch me do what I'm doing. He goes, hell, you're even going to place a few of them. And I was like, oh, all right, whatever. I said, let's make sure that we align this with a football game. So I went down, spent a Friday with him. And before I was done, we'd called the Misch Institute. I'd enrolled myself in the Misch Center. And I went to Detroit, Michigan once a month I took all his courses. So I think I went up there 9 times. And then it became my passion.
Yeah, that's a great story. And I think, people, run into that same process now. They get out of school, they realize they've got no training, maybe think they want to get into implant dentistry, but, obviously it's where to go, who's teaching the best courses, where can you get mentorship, how much does it cost, time away from practice, all that sort of thing. So it's good when you find, someone who can help mentor you and guide you in that path and kind of get you started in the right direction. Because I know, once you find the love of what you're doing, whether it's implants or surgery or whatever, it's, you want to continue to refine that craft and get better all the time. And it takes special people kind of pointing you in the right direction.
Well, it does. Roger sent me, and it turns out that a nephew of his, which is backstory, Mike Frymouth out of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, is one of my best friends and my living mentor, who's my age, and he'd done the same. Roger is actually his uncle, and he'd done the same thing to Mike, and I didn't realize it, but he'd put us both on the airplane, to Detroit, and we hooked up, and we've been best friends ever since. And it's awesome to find a buddy to go through these programs with. We did all 9 of I think there's 8 or 9 of Misch's courses at the time. We did all the advanced ones, Temple, everything. We went every single time together, and then we also went to the AAID maxi-course in Atlanta, Georgia. We went together. We took that course together. We took Picos's course together. We took Russo's course together, and then we ended up the last continuum that we've taken was we both went to the Coyce Center, to John Coyce Center out in Seattle, went through their his 9 programs. You want to talk about expensive? That's a really expensive one. And then we became mentors out there. I mean, it's just, it was that drive and that fire to learn more and to be able to do procedures that you wouldn't normally ever be able to do. You can't do those on those weekend warrior courses. And there's, and if it's a weekend warrior course that inspires you, then that's great. But the problem is that those are driven by manufacturers. Now, don't get me wrong, all of us that teach dentistry, like we have sponsors in the back of the room, whether it's Shine or BioHorizons or, a lab or whatever it is, because, there's not a lot of money in the education. So you need something to help cover the cost, but there are also good resources for you back there. But if you go to one of these weekend warrior courses that's 100% manufacturer driven, then you're only getting a tiny slice of the pie. You're only getting, why that system is so good and why you should use them. And you're not seeing, the forest through the trees. You're not getting to see, they're not going to teach you about pharmacology. They're not going to teach you about bone physiology. They're not going to teach you about risk assessment of smokers and bisphosphonates and all this other stuff that is so important in making our practices successful and cutting down on the complications. They're interested in teaching you how to drill a hole in a sawbone and buy their implants. And you do have to do that at some point, but at the end of the day, I think there's better ways to teach and better ways to learn.
Yeah, well said. I think everybody's interested in implants, goes to a weekend course, and hopefully that's the start of your education, not the end of your education. But it's definitely important to look for who you decipher your information from and what kind of level of anatomy and physiology and, torque and all those things that matter that those guys just aren't going to tell you. They're going to say, buy this kit and buy that and, go home and start placing implants. And there's, obviously so much more to it than that.
There is, but at the same time, I think back when I started doing this, and I graduated in 97, so I don't think I placed an implant until 98. But one of those things that you just have to do is you finally just got to get up in the morning and go do it. And cone beam wasn't available back then. I mean, all we had was a 2D analog Panorex and a film based PA. But with good sound surgical principles that I learned at Misch versus a weekend warrior course, I mean, he taught us, because we didn't talk about cone beams when I went to Misch, because they weren't around. They weren't accessible. I mean, he would say, when he would talk about doing hip grafts and stuff like that, he would take him to the hospital and do a big CT machine, a big CT scan, but for us, it wasn't like it is today, where if you're looking to buy a pano, like I would tell you, like you should make sure it's got cone beam capabilities, or at least upgradable capabilities when you buy it. So, we learned to make big flaps and look for the rental foramens and take measurements. And, basically what, we used these bone calipers that would, at your consultation appointment, you could lightly anesthetize the gingiva and use these calipers. And basically you're 3D mapping that bone using your 2D images and the third dimension through these bone calipers. And it worked. I mean, I've got a lot of implants out there, and I've never made anybody numb. I mean, and I say that, I've probably placed more implants now with CT than I did, without. But I went from 98 to 2006 without cone beam. So, those systems work. You just have to have good sound, surgical principles.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can definitely do it before, but I think anymore it almost seems crazy to do it without, having what we have now. Some of the courses you speak on is, and maybe we're getting a little ahead here, is that digital workflow. I know you're a fan of scanning and taking cone beams and merging that data and, applying all that science to get you the greatest outcome now. Can you talk about how you got started in all those adaptions of technology?
Oh, well, yeah. A guy named Jeff Dirks, he went to high school about 20 miles away from me, and we went to the University of Nebraska together. So I've known him virtually all my life. And when we graduated in Nebraska, I went to dental school. He went off and he actually got to a job with an orthodontic software company. But he ended up at Imaging Sciences, the ICAT. And in 2006, there was only really two machines on the market. There was the ICAT and the Newtome, and the Newtome was a lay-down machine that, took up a huge footprint, and nobody wanted to put the little old lady, on a, layer on a back on the damn machine in your office. So he called me up one day and he goes, "Are you going to the Icoi meeting in Las Vegas?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I am." And he goes, "Come by the booth because you're going to be buying something." I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so, buddy. But yeah, I'll come by." Checked out the ICAT. I looked at it, and it was first day, and I just like, yeah, okay, whatever, because it had a price tag of $226,000, and I was like, no. So I went back, that night, at dinner, eating with my buddies, but I kept coming back to this, like, how nice would it be to not lay that big flap and know where the nerve is? How nice would it be to know the exact distance you have to the floor of the sinus, to know whether you need no grafting or a crestal lift or a full-on lateral lift? Like how nice would that be? So it was funny. I called my wife up and I said, "This is gonna sound a little crazy." I said, "But I think I'm gonna spend $250,000 today." And she's like, "Well," she's always been one that's been really super supportive. And she's like, "Well, if that's what you need to do, what you need to do, then we'll make it work." And I was like, "Yeah, all right." Because little backstory, she went and got her MBA while I was going to dental school. So she's involved, she's obviously involved in my practices, not on a day-to-day, like the patients have no interaction with her, my doctors that work for me don't have any interaction with her, but she runs the business side of it. And it's been, probably what's got me to this point, to begin with, is not having to deal with that myself, only having to do with patient care. But I ran the numbers and I was like, you know what? I get rid of my Panorex and put this thing in there. I'm looking at my new patients that are coming in. I got patients in hygiene that haven't had a pan for 5 years, plus my implant patients. I was like, that payment was like, just shy of $4,000 a month for 5 years or some damn thing like that. And I'm just like, hell, I can pay for this damn thing through just charging a pan fee. I got enough patients. I mean, you think about it. I mean, you need charge $100 for a pan. How many new patients do you see in a month on average?
40, 45 maybe.
Yeah. So 40, 45, so I just created a new patient experience. For me, that was, it was either a full mouth series if the patient had visible decay, or we did a cone beam pano and 4 vertical bite wings. And that was just part of, whether it's right or wrong, that was part of our new patient experience. And we were doing the same thing, 40, 50 new patients a month. And you'd like, okay, so 30 patients a month, I'm going to do a pano on. And then I've got my hygiene recall patients that need one once every 5 years, and then the patients that actually need the cone beam for a CT, or, for implants, I'd then charge a $250 CT fee for. I figured that particular machine took me about 2 years to pay for. Way early, I paid it off 3 years earlier than I'd financed it for. But ever since, all my offices have cone beam in them, and it takes about 18 months for them to pay for themselves. So it's just I tell you what, it's a tool in your toolbox that I think you got to have, and it's more than implants. Like if you were to ask any of my associates, the first thing, if someone's needing endo, for instance, the first thing they'll look for is that patient ever had a cone beam on them, and if they have, they'll go straight to that cone beam. They'll measure that tooth. They'll set their files, and they're done. I mean, it's and they can slice through that tooth, and they don't have to open it up and like pray they find an MB2 or something like that. Like they'll slice through that tooth, look at it, and say, "Oh, there it is, right there." I don't have to go hunting looking for it. So there's all sorts of things. It's good technology, but if you talk about that digital, that was my first piece, and then in 2008 that was the first ICAT in the state of Nebraska, and our first private practice cone beam. And I'm sure that the other 1,000 dentists in the state that are active were like, that guy's batshit crazy. Like there's he's practicing in a town of 1,100 people, and he dumped $250,000 in a machine. Like no way. Yeah, you're shaking your head. It's like what they're saying. They're just like, that guy's, they're either saying that guy's off his rocker or he's just independently wealthy and things don't matter to him, which neither of the true. Closer to being crazy than I was wealthy. So then in 2008, my Shine rep come by and he said, you need to scan these. You need to scan stuff. And I was like, well, what am I going to scan? And he's like, well, your problem is you're out here in the middle of nowhere, and you got to put your crown's impressions in a box and send them to somewhere. And it takes days and days and days. I mean, it was taking me 3 to 4 weeks to get a crown back because, UPS, there's no such thing as next day out there in the sticks, So I bought this E4D and used it, but there was really no integration with the cone beam at that time. Like they were just separate technologies that were great. And it hasn't been until the last probably 3 or 4 years that we've had real integration through, Anatomage, that's the software that came with the ICAT. So I started dabbling in some surgical guides, and because I had all the scanner, I had all the information in-house. And now today, I'll scan a scan body, and the lab is already working on the crown before the patient even leaves the chair. It's just the workflow today is efficient, reliable, predictable, and is the future of dentistry.
Yeah, it definitely is. Everything's headed that way, and it's just a matter of kind of if and not when, people join on. So now you are owner, and not necessarily operator, but definitely owner of multiple practices. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've got I do. I own 4 general dentistry practices that have associates in them, and then I have this implant center here in Rapid City.
Okay, so how did you go from graduating school to, I guess, being the owner of 5 practices, and how do you manage the management side of that? Because that's no easy task.
No, it's not. So let's see. It was 2002, so I'd been out 5 years, and I wanted to do more implants, and I was like, I've got to get a second office. So I found a guy that was had retired and hadn't sold his practice, so I went and paid for a building and a few old charts in a town about 60 miles away, and I went down there twice a week. and did general dentistry and implants, but it opened up a new market. It was a much bigger town. It was a town of 10,000 people in Alliance, Nebraska. So opened up, a much bigger market for implants. So we started doing that. But both practices were growing so much that I was like, all right, I'm going to need to get an associate. So I got one associate. Then I bought another practice. And then we did a scratch practice with it was funny. I got these two dentists out of one class at Nebraska, and they were doing well. And one of their other classmates called me up at 11th hour. This is August of the year they graduated, and he's like, he's got no job, and he's like, you got anything for me out there? He goes, I'm from Western Nebraska. And I was just like, well, I don't right now. I said, but there is a town that a group of investors wanted to build a clinic for me if they could get a dentist to come back to that town. And I was like, well, I said, if you're okay trying to work through a scratch practice, we'll give it a run. And at that time, I'd never done a scratch practice before. I'd always bought, I had my own, and then with my old partner, I bought out, and then, I bought another practice, and then never done a scratch. So we put him in there, and hell, it worked out really well. And I've done one more scratch since. So I've bought one, acquired one, and opened two scratches. And 2014 was tough because I was trying to do, everybody that wants to own multiple practices, they look at it and say, okay, man, I'm gonna open these practices and they're just gonna make me money, and someday I won't have to work and they'll make money for me. And I just said, like, that's a good way to go broke if that's what you're gonna do that for. And what I found, I never had that thought, but what I did think is that I could manage them all and be a wet finger, I hate that word, but, a working dentist, working on patients. And I do think that at three practices, you definitely have, at three practices, you have to make the decision on whether you're going to be the CEO of your company or you're going to be a dentist working at your company, because you can't do both. There's too much management to run and be a dentist. So what I chose to do was, I hired a regional director. So I hired a lady that actually I elevated her within my own company, but I hired her to take care of the practices. So she's my regional director. So what she does is she does all the hiring, and there's rarely any firing, but she does the hiring and firing, and she keeps everything up with HIPAA and OSHA, and she keeps everybody in check. Everybody's licenses are good. Everybody's health insurance, HR, things like that for the group. Just stuff that just eats your time up. And then we have a centralized billing and services. So none of my offices worry about payroll. None of our offices worried about cutting checks. We do it all in a centralized location. Matter of fact, none of the offices even get any mail, because most everything's electronic, but all bills, all invoices, everything go to one central location. So my front desk, the front desk people in our system, their job is to, check people in, check people out, take money, and answer the phone. They have no management. E-services does it for, does all that stuff for you. They still file claims, but it's all kind of done in there. But they don't have to worry about any of the management side of it. And that's what, at some point you get to that point, and those that fizzle or kind of flare out are those that try to do everything. And I was almost that person.
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate with that. You can only do so much, and even if you can do multiple things at once, you're not the best suited to always do that. You've got strengths and weaknesses, and maybe you're a great dentist, but managing 6 locations isn't your job because it's not your strength, and maybe it's because you don't have time and you're making money being a dentist somewhere else. So there's good ways and bad ways to do that. How did you like the scratch office, putting an associate right into that? Did you find that was easier
stressful
or hard? Yeah, stressful. Yeah.
So the 2 scratches I've done, one I did a scratch with a greenhorn with a fresh grad and a scratch practice. That's a slow build, because and it wasn't on the patient side, but it was on the doctor skill side. Trying to get them. You come from dental school where you see a couple patients max during a day, to 8 patients, hopefully 1 an hour for a rookie, more like probably 6 for 8 hours, 6 patients in 8 hours. Plus, you got a little hygiene there. That's a tough gig. The second scratch we did was with a doc that had been with, he'd been with one of the corporate offices, and I think he'd done 2 or 3 years with them. So the speed thing, I let the corporate people get him up to speed and get the kinks worked out. We opened a scratch for him and hit the ground running because he had a skill set already. So that's I don't necessarily recommend the scratch with a greenhorn. That's probably, if I was to write a book about that, that's probably the don't do chapter. But the doc was good, and we fought through it, and he's been with me for 5 years now, and that's in that location.
Great. Now, I know you are a member of the AAID. You're also a diplomate of the ABOI? Is that right?
Yep, the American Board of Oral Implantologists.
Now, those are about as big of awards as you can get, in that arena. I know that was a long journey for you, and your passion now is also turned into teaching. So, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the, if you'd like, the continuum that you're going to be starting to offer as your teaching career continues to blossom and spread its wings?
Sure. I'm going to go back just a little bit to the credentialing process.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
I think that organized dentistry is a needed entity. Whether it's the ADA, if that's what you want to do as a general dentist, or it's the AGD, if that's something that you're trying to work through for a fellow or a master's in that organization. But for implant dentistry, there are a few organizations out there. One of which is the Icoi, or the International Congress of Oral Implantologists. This was started by Carl Misch and a doctor named Ken Judy. It's the largest one in the world, but it's a much larger international footprint than the domestic one, which is the American Academy of Implant Dentistry, and that is the entity that sponsors the maxi-courses, which are 300-hour, what I think is basically a residency program because of the time commitment that you have to put out. And the AAID credentials culminate they have an associate fellow, a fellow, and then they're linked together, but they're not the same organization. As the American Board of Oral Implantology, or the ABOI, is the only credential that is recognized by the courts in the United States. And I don't use this to scare people, because this is I had specialists try to scare me off with this for years, and that is, you get jammed up, you end up in a courtroom, and you're placing implants. And the old thing used to be, well, what are your credentials? And you're not an oral surgeon, you're a periodontist, so why should you have been doing these? And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And part of the reason I went down that credential route is, like, I want to remove that stigmatism. I want to remove those thoughts of people thinking that general dentists shouldn't be doing this, because implant dentistry doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to all of us. Anyone that's got a DDS or a DMD behind their name, implant dentistry belongs to them. What you do with that is up to you, and how you represent implant dentistry is my passion. People go on Dental Town, and they'll see a bad implant placement or whatever, and they'll run this, they'll run the dentist under the bus, or whatever. And I tend to look at this like, I'm not upset at the dentist that did that, because you got to give every dentist the benefit of the doubt. Like, we don't know what it was like that day. I mean, maybe that patient couldn't even open their mouth. Maybe the patient was crazy and should have been sedated instead. Not making excuses for why you place one bad, but I'm not laying any blame on that patient, on that doctor at all. Because trust me, I got plenty of them that I teach a whole 2-day complications course, and it's all my own stuff. And I tell people, it's all my own stuff, and you guys need to learn from me and not do what I've done, over the course of 20 years, because I've did it, and these are the things, in my experience, have done well. But the credentialing allowed me to open up that doorway and say, okay, I am maybe a little more educated on the implant side as what to do, and I want to be a good ambassador for implant dentistry. That's like, that guy that gets run over on the bus in Dental Town. I'm not upset at the dentist that placed that implant. What upsets me is that patient is no longer a raving fan of dental implants. It has nothing to do with the dentist, but it has everything to do with implant dentistry because, as we know, it's the only solution for tooth replacement, in my opinion. I mean, it's the only solution. Now, sometimes, you might have to do something else, but for the majority of people, probably 98% of the time, we can turn them into an implant candidate, and it's the best tooth replacement. I think if you asked 100 dentists, would you rather have a bridge or would you rather have an implant? Like, I don't know if even a single one of them would raise their hand for the bridge. Maybe if they were 80 years old or something, but seriously, it's the best deal. So I want to be a good advocate for implant dentistry, and that's what I think the credentialing does. And in that same light, I think mentorship is lost in today's implant dentistry, actually in dentistry altogether. I had a mentor when I got out that held my hand, told me these things I needed to do, and you'd figure them out for yourself. But we don't have that as much today. I mean, like, people sell their practice and they leave. You go work for Aspen. I mean, there's not a, you don't have, I'm not picking on Aspen, but I'm just saying, where's the mentor there? I mean, yeah, they provide you with continuing education, but where's that real time, real life mentor that's in the trenches, with you? So I developed and I've been teaching implant dentistry for a while now, but we've developed a continuum called Implant Pathway that is designed to be 21st century, i.e. online education for the things that you don't need to fly all the way across the country for. We have the first 16 hours of the continuum are all done. You can be on your, on your couch in your pajamas on your iPad, doing these 16 1-hour courses and taking these tests at the end of them. And it's subjects like implant rationale, pharmacology, bone physiology, all these things that today, I used to fly to Detroit and Atlanta to learn about those things. You don't need to fly to learn about those things today. So the sessions that we offer in person, 2 and 3, are all hands-on. The things that you can't do through your iPad. You can't practice taking a tooth out and placing an immediate implant in a pig jaw on your iPad. You can't place implants on a model on an iPad. You can't learn how to manipulate grafting materials and membranes on hands-on exercises, on your iPad. So 2 and 3 is about getting those things done. Session 4 is really what we've been working on for the last 18 months, and that is a domestic live surgery course. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've seen this increase in Dominican Republic, Guadalajara, Tijuana, Juarez, all these places you're going for live implant training. But it's only a portion of it because all you're getting is the surgical aspect, and you're not doing anything on the restorative side. So there's nothing against the good people of the Dominican Republic or Mexico or anything like that, but there's got to be a ton of people running around with a jaw full of screws and no restoration on top, because who's doing that? Seriously, who's doing that? So I felt like, and then, now, it's so much harder to fly, out of the country. You got to have a passport, and you got to, it's more time out of your practice too, because you got these long travels. So I was like, there's got to be something domestically that we can do to help our own. And I ran across the CAS clinic. It's called the Central Arizona Shelter Services. And they have a dental clinic, and it's in downtown Phoenix called the Brighter Way Clinic. And it's a totally free, nonprofit clinic that sees homeless veterans, people down on their luck in the greater Phoenix area. And I went there one time, and I've been working with the director, Dr. Chris Volchek there, who's given his life to public service and getting this off the ground. And we've developed and had a partner, we had now an exclusive partnership there to provide live implant training there. So we did our pilot course in November. It was kind of a closed course of people. Actually did some training for another group, and 12 doctors. We put down 224 implants and I don't know how much graft. Needed about $500,000 worth of donated dentistry. at just UCR, usual and customary fees. But the key was they have an on-site denture lab, and we placed implants, and they'd had some of their residents. They got a kind of a residency program there. They'd had some implants placed there. So eight of these people, we literally Thursday morning, we would put the locators on, take an impression, and they would deliver the dentures on Saturday, like 2 days later. And these people now instead of instead of having that same group of people in Phoenix running around with lots of bone and plenty of implants, but still no teeth to work with, the whole idea of this implant pathway is to teach the restorative side, because I know from going to Temple with Misch, and learning, I placed implants there, which is only on your own patient. It really wasn't much of an experience, but you get home and you don't get any of the restorative. I mean, there's no courses out there providing you with, well, how do I really uncover an implant? How do I manage keratinized tissue? How do I take an impression for an implant overdenture? Do I want to pick it up chair side? Can I have it lab processed? So our next course, which is in February, which is sold out, the course that we did in November, we do one of these about every 4 months until we get the snowball filled up. We're going to spend half the time restoring implants that the previous group placed. So now they're going to get surgical experience. So they're going to get somewhere between 16 and 24 implants to be placed in 3 days. Plus, you're going to get to uncover implants. You're going to get to put restorative parts on. You're going to get to deliver final implant overdentures. I think that's my vision. Online, live treatment planning with all aspects of it. That's my goal for the implant pathway.
That's fantastic. I think that closes a lot of gaps that are left in the current curriculums. Yeah, you can go here and learn this, or you can go there and place surgeries out of country, but nowhere can you also restore them and also look at those second phase surgeries and all those things. Because, yeah, you're exactly right. People aren't going there just to have a head full of implants. They're going for a head full of teeth. So placing great implants is half the battle, and restoring them properly is the other half. And some places or teachers or institutes don't teach both sides of the story, and you have to have an understanding of both, to really properly do that. And I think, anybody that teaches, end in mind, work your way back, and the full circle, can really offer, fantastic things. So when are you going through in waves? Does someone sign up like, okay, I want to take, 1, 2, 3, 4? How does that start? Does it start in like February? I would take phase 1, and April I'd take phase 2, and kind of walk someone through that. I know this is kind of new development for you, and maybe that's not defined yet.
Well, it was actually great timing for this podcast. We actually did the official launch of the Continuum today. So it's at implantpathway.com. You can go to Facebook and like it, but it's implantpathway.com. And so the first in-person session is actually January 19th and 20th in Phoenix. We're doing 5 cities: Phoenix, Dallas, Denver, Los Angeles, and San Francisco this year. And the online session, as soon as you go there and you decide this is the continuum that you want to take, as soon as you pay for it, it turns on your online modules. So session 1 is all online. So the minute you commit to taking this continuum, it opens up your 16 online modules that you need to have done before the first one. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world. We catch you up, because there's always some overlap. So session 2 is actually what we call the first time you actually get to meet me and go to a facility, and that will be January 20th. And it's a Friday. They're Friday, Saturday courses. You get 16 hours for session 1, 16 for 2, 16 for 3, and then the live surgery, which is 3 days. You get 24 hours of continuing education. Everything is ADA, AGD approved. It's CERP paced. It works in every state. The CE is good. It counts towards your AAID hours. It counts actually the culmination of our courses actually qualifies you for the fellowship at the Icoi. So it's something that you can hang your hat on a little bit as well. And when you actually come to session 2, there's not a lot of fluff. I mean, it's down and what I call down and dirty. It's like I expect you to leave session 2 knowing how to place implants in an abundant bone situation where you have lots of good bone on a healthy individual. Because truthfully, if you're getting into dental implants, you need to take the first 15, 20 cases that you're going to do. You just need to cherry pick them. And everyone's practices are full of these. And, cut these patients a deal and get them in. Get these implants in abundant bone with lots of bone and good healthy patients, not raging diabetics, things like that. Give yourself a chance to have some success before you dive into the other stuff. But our goal is abundant bone placement, socket grafting. Like, it's so important to tell our patients about bone loss after the extraction of a tooth. So get socket grafting down, because not only is it right for the patient, it adds revenue to your extraction appointment, and it builds future implant sites. Like, it's a win for everyone involved. It's not about money. It's about doing the right thing. And if you do the right thing every time, the money comes. And then the third thing that I want is my objective of that is to be able to do the lower implant overdenture between the foramens, whether it's 2 or 4 implants between the foramens, and deliver, because everyone's practices are full of people that hate their lower denture. I mean, I don't know anybody that loves their lower denture. So I want you to, once you're done with that, I expect, you'll have about a month, about 4 to 6 week break before session 3. Session 3, we dive into the edentulous maxilla, which is treated completely different than the mandible. We dive into the restoration phase of this. What kind of impression copings do we use? How do we do it? Is it open tray? Is it closed tray? When do you use these things? Multiple units. Do we splint these things together? Do we leave them single? Do they screw retain? Do we do cement retain? That's the goal of session 3, is to kind of tie the rest of the implant dentistry together. And then if you haven't placed one on your own before you go to session 4, you're going to get a ton of experience placing implants and doing some restorations. So that's kind of what I built. That's the simple plan. We'll be adding, we're going to be adding courses the latter half of next year, as we're going to do a full arch course, for people that want to learn all on 4 type techniques, immediate loading. We're going to have a guided surgery course to teach people how to, take the adequate information, deliver their products, do, through the guide. And then we do a 2-day complications course. So that's really, I'm not everything to everyone. I don't have a bone grafting course. There's a ton of good people out there that can teach that. I mean, I recommend, you want to learn about bone grafting, man, I'd haul my butt to Florida and learn from Mike Picos. John Russo in the Carolinas, also, and he's down in Florida too. He's amazing. I mean, there's a lot of good guys out there. My deal is I want to get people energized about implant dentistry and getting them to place.
That's fantastic. I don't know that I've been more excited about one single place to go now for all this stuff. And I think you're going to close a lot of loopholes with this. And, I for one, am going to check my calendar today and start looking at your courses and see when I can get there. Cause I know, I've placed a bunch of implants, but I think I'm just going to take it, 1 through 4 and just go right through it. And then I know there's things that maybe, I'm not doing that you've done that, absolutely I could learn for. And it's always good to kind of continue that ever, expanding knowledge and, just experience,
100%. And I look at it this way, whether you're brand new to dentistry or like yourself that have been placing, I think any course you take, you're going to get some nuggets out of it. Like, you may leave the course saying, it was a lot of review. Well, if you knew that it was review going in, if you already had some of this stuff, review course never hurts anything. It just solidifies, what you already knew and maybe what you're doing. You're going to pick up some pearls along the way. And, we created this. The truth of the matter is, I think it's a good continuum, because we built this. Mike and I, Mike Frymouth and I, we built this. I do 8 of the online sessions. He does the other 8, and we sat down just exactly what you said. We said, you know what? There's very few people on this planet that have taken as much continuing education in implant dentistry as I have, as Mike and I have. So what did we miss? So we went through it like, when we went through Misch, what was good and what was missing? Like, what did we have to pick up from someone else somewhere else? And it was the same with the maxi-course, and it was the same with Cois, and we're not better than any of them because it's a culmination of all your experiences. There's fluff that we took out that, like, if you're new to implant dentistry, you don't need to listen to that for 2 days, because you're not going to do that until you've got 300 or 400 screws in. Like let's just do the down and dirty. What does it take to be safe, reliable, and predictable using implant dentistry? I mean, and we're very cone beam heavy. I mean, even though I say I've done a lot of it, I don't recommend you doing them without cone beam. I think it's the standard of care. We teach you, it doesn't matter what machine you have. We teach you how to diagnose and treatment plan off the cone beam, what things to look for, the anatomy on the cone beams to look for. So it's we put a lot of thought and effort, and truthfully, I tell people all the time when they listen to me talk, like, the most important thing that you could do when you come to my course is to fill out the evaluation honestly. It literally is like, hey, I came here thinking I would learn this, and it didn't happen. Like, it's one of the most powerful things that I have. Like, every course I teach, I've never done the same one twice. And this continuum will be the same way. We start in Phoenix, and I think we go to Orange County or LA next after that. And I guarantee you that the second one, not that you shouldn't take the first, but the second one's going to be a little better than the first. But the fifth one is going to be a lot better. And because it's going to be a work in progress. The online sessions, we're going to ask for reviews, and if there's something about it that you didn't like, or it wasn't a good way of purveying it, man, we'll change it. That's part of delivering, a great message. So the nice thing about our continuum too is what really sucked about going to Misch and even the maxi courses, those dates are set in stone, and life happens, like the maxi course, that's 10 weekends in a year with no once a month for 10 months with no change. Like, and you can't miss one. So what if someone gets married? What if you got a death? I mean, there's life happens, you know what I mean? So what we designed was our initial year in 2017, we're gonna have these 5 cities that have session 2 and 3 at the cities. All the session 4s are in Phoenix at this time. But if you can make Phoenix for session 2, but you might have to catch session 3 in LA, it's the same info. I don't care if you bounce back and forth. It doesn't make any difference. I mean, as long as you're getting, because life happens, man. I mean, you have to pick some dates, but if one doesn't work for the other, grab it somewhere else.
I love that, because you're absolutely right. Maybe, you got something going on this time of year, and maybe Phoenix works for session 1, and then you got to take a month off, and maybe Dallas works for session 3, and it's kind of depends on where your flight miles are racked up and what you got going on that time of year and all that, So
well, it's no secret if you look at the cities that we went to. We went to Phoenix and LA in the dead of the winter.
Sure, absolutely.
Because like you in Kansas City and me in South Dakota, like,
it's brutal.
I'd rather go somewhere where it's warm. And Phoenix Phoenix is warm, and I think we got a session going on where there's some spring training down there. Not that you can skip class, but there's some time around to work for it. So, and then we move into Denver in the summertime and San Francisco in the summer and the fall. Which is the nicest parts for those. I mean, come out a day early, stay a day late, make a little vacation out of it, and use it as a business expense.
Yeah, take the wife or the girlfriend and write it off on the business maybe, and call it a win for everybody. So. Yeah, I love that. Now, you said this thing's got 72 hours if you do it straight through, and I can use those to count towards my associate fellowship in the AAID. And you said something I could also credential for the Icoi as well?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, if nothing else, that's a good reason to go right there.
Absolutely. Now, because the patient, the patient probably doesn't understand the difference between the ICY and the AAID. And I'm diplomats in both. I love both organizations. I'm involved in both. But their credentialing processes are different. But the patient doesn't know. But the patient does like the fact that you're a fellow in one of them hanging on the wall. You put it in your waiting room. You call it, wall hangers. I mean, they don't really know anything about it, but at the same time, they know you at least took the effort to go learn more about it and become involved in that. And that's in my opinion, I think that's an important thing.
It is, absolutely. And I think it sounds silly to go chasing those diplomas, but as you get into those programs, you realize there's a lot more material in there, and you come out a better dentist on the end. So I think a lot of people get into that starting thing, I just want the wall hangers, but they come out of it becoming a better person, a better dentist, a better mentor, hopefully a better implantologist for the whole field. And so I do think there's a lot of merit that goes into those.
I agree. I think it's usually where people, that's why we kind of named it that implant pathway, because it's your pathway to implantology, and there is no one, it's your pathway too. There's no one perfect course, and ours isn't going to be that perfect course for every single person, but hopefully we did what you think we might have, and that is, hopefully we closed a few more loopholes. Hopefully we inspire a few more people to say, hey, you know what? If I could do this in a town of 1,100 people in Western Nebraska, like you can do this stuff anywhere.
We'll kind of close up here in a little bit because I know I've borrowed enough of your time for this afternoon. So I've got a couple extra questions just down here at the bottom. One, I know you are a podcaster. You are one of the many on dentist implants and worms, and I love hearing your shows about that. Even though the first 10 minutes of it usually have nothing to do with dentistry, and they're normally about mixing cocktails and
boys, wine, and spirits. That's right.
Yeah.
The first. I'm going to tell Alan Mead this, that I'm claiming the first sponsored podcast in the dental world. We started out of the chute being sponsored by a wine and spirits shop down the road. So it's been great. No, dentist implants and worms. I loved, I was on Howard Fran's Dental Town podcast, years ago. You've been on that too, haven't you?
I have interviewed Howard. And
you've interviewed Howard. I got you.
His waiting list is about 6 months, so I think I think him and I are going to do his show sometime in like April.
Yeah, he's a good dude, So I don't know. I think I'm he's like in like 600 or 700 episodes. I think I'm like 185 or some damn thing like that. But
I'm on like 18 if it makes you feel any better.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Worms. We just cruised past 80, which is cool, and we'll be. Sometime in February, we're going to be knocking on that 100 door. So that's just, I'm super proud of it. Jeff Smith is one of my co-hosts. He's actually my director of practice development here at my place. So he does my web pages. He does the marketing for this. He did all my logo designs. When you go to implantpathway.com, that's all him. He put the whole damn thing together. I'm joined by Gabe Olson as well. He's a local dental supply rep. So he brings that, he's out in the offices listening to, what they got going on. So he brings a great perspective, tons of dental knowledge, learned dental equipment repair in the Navy. And then our fourth guest, who is not on as much, and that's the worms part. And it's Dr. John Landers in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was number one in our class. We called him the bookworm. So we added the worms for him. The dude's funny as hell. He just, it's hard to corral him on these, but it's been one of the funner things we do. And then we're going to do the Voices of Dentistry in Nashville here in a few weeks. Great.
Now, if I had to choose going to Nashville or going to Phoenix at the end of the month, which one would you recommend?
No, you should probably go to Phoenix.
Because I'm not officially invited to either, but I'm trying to figure out a way to get either to Nashville or to Phoenix right now, as there's only about 20 days left, and I'll have to probably book a flight that's going to cost me more than it should. You think I get more out of Phoenix than Nashville, huh?
Dude, you got to learn a bunch either way. You know,
off the record.
Yeah, off the record. Yeah, you got to learn a bunch either way. There's a ton of good people at the Voices of Dentistry. You know, that one's not all about implants. I mean, there are a few implant dudes in there, but I think I might be the only one that's hardcore talking about implants. But yeah, depends on what you want to do, man.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll discuss that one off air. That'll be good.
Sure, that will be. So, you know, being a fellow podcaster, and of course, I'm an unknown guy, in the Midwest. Who else do you think I should interview for this show, or would you be willing to help me out with that?
Oh, sure. There's a ton of. I mean, you had Howard on there, which is awesome. You know, you got to, you know, there's a couple things in working your show. You know, one is you know, pick some, you know, higher profile people and get them on the show and help them grassroots organically grow your following by having good content and good people on there. Yeah, surprisingly, you got some content out of me. This was odd. I
had to catch you the morning after New Year's Eve. I thought, this will be the one time you won't be drinking.
I know. I got my tumbler full of water. That might be the only time I podcasted without a cocktail. But yeah, you know, you should have my partner on here, Mike Frymouth. Yeah, and I'll send you an email list of some guys that. But you know, if it you know, yours is geared towards implants.
Sure.
So I got a whole ton of buddies that Mike Tischler. I don't know if you've heard of Mike Tischler out of Woodstock, New York.
I've heard of him, but I don't know much about him.
He just started a franchise called Teeth Tomorrow, which is kind of an immediate load solution.
Okay, great.
You know, kind of like a Clear Choice, and he's a recognized fellow in the AAID. He's an ABOI diplomat. He's the implant editor of Dentistry Today. I mean, just total stud. He has his own dental laboratory as well.
I think I've seen him in some magazines, but I've never.
Absolutely.
I've read some of his stuff, but of course I've never met him.
Right. Mike Frymouth, a guy that teaches with me at Implant Pathway. He's an ABOI diplomat. He's in Denver, Colorado. He's got his own lab. He's places a ton of screws. Like all these guys are guys that place literally 1,000 screws a year. I mean, it seems like sometimes it's funny because sometimes you know, when people tell you how many screws they place, you know, you might be like, you probably divide that by 3, and you know, it's closer to reality. That's why most of us, you know, would never tell you how many we do, and because A, you wouldn't believe it, and B, you know, when your practices are geared towards that, it's really not that hard to fathom. But Danny Domain or Jerome Smith, they practice together down in Lafayette, Louisiana. They do a little bit of teaching as well. They just had Corey Glenn down there for a course on guided implant surgery. Danny's the youngest ABOI diplomat. He is a graduate of the NYU program of Tarnows. I mean, just an unconscious clinician. So yeah, I'll give you a list of these guys. I mean, these are all rock stars, and but they're also down to earth people they're also great mentors, and that's why I surround myself with them, because they're not egomaniacs. They love implant dentistry. They don't view any other dentist as a threat. They only view them as someone that they could help, you know, get as excited about implant dentistry as we are.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely know of those guys. I haven't met any of them personally, but I definitely recognize the names and some of their swagger that they have. So I'd love to try to get in touch with them. And like I said, I'm just trying to extract some knowledge out of the greatest implant dentist on the country and pass it along. So it's all good.
You did have one other question on here. Can I come watch you for a day?
I did. Yeah.
It'd be my pleasure. You ever want to fly up to Rapid City and hang out with me for a day? You're always welcome.
Coming from Kansas City, how do you even get to Rapid City?
It's not hard at all. United one hop to Denver and Denver up, or you can Delta from KC to Minneapolis then over. Yeah, United's got 7 flights a day from Denver to Rapid, so yeah, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to get to KC. I got a good buddy that's lives there, so I go there quite a bit.
Okay, great. What do you like to do when you're in town?
You know what? Catch a Royals game. I'm a big baseball fan, not of the Royals, but Alex Gordon, of course. I'm big.
Of course, big Nebraska guy.
Yeah. I still wish he'd have played quarterback for us instead of playing baseball, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, eat a little barbecue, hang out, Power and Light District's not a bad place to watch a sporting event or have a cocktail. So
Sure. Well, that sounds like you've definitely been there before. So
I've been there once or twice.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm going to hit you up and take you up on that because I think I'd love to come watch the master at his work. And like I said, I really appreciate the time today. I'm going to be trying to get to see you at your courses here coming up. Any other final closing words for any of the listeners? Any last bit of advice for anybody out there?
This isn't about an infomercial for my program, because I'll tell you, whether you take Implant Pathway or you do something else, man, hop off the fence and do it. It's like this digital technology. You can sit on the fence and say, the next version's coming. The blue cam, the purple cam, the orange cam. Whatever it is. Like at some point you got to buy one. Some point you got to hop off the fence, and you got to know that on the technology side, once you hop off, yeah, there is another product that's better, but pick one. Sometimes I tell people, sometimes that model that they're trying to close out for the next one, that's your best. That might be your best deal into digital dentistry is pick up the model that's being replaced, because it's not bad technology. Use it and then figure out if it's worth the next upgrade is worth it or not. But you got to get off the fence at some point. Whether it's buying cone beam, whether it's buying a scanner, or if you've always wanted to do implants and you're tired of making dentures that float, like at some point you got to like hop off the fence, take a damn course and do it. Whether it's mine or someone else's, man, just do it. Whether you take mine or not, people can email me, call me, whatever. I'll help them along the way. It doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it's just, finding the courage and knowing that you're doing the right thing and do it. Because I think, first placing implants, coming out of school, not being trained, it seems scary. It seems something that maybe a lot of dentists would never do. But once you jump into it and you jump both feet all in, I tell you, it's an amazing ward, and your patients have a lot to benefit from. So I just encourage everybody to get in, find a good mentor, and jump with both feet in. You won't regret it.
That's good. That's good words of wisdom, my friend.
Well, Dr. Moody, I appreciate your time today. I'll let you get back to it. I know you're a busy man, so have a good new year and look forward to seeing you out there somewhere soon, okay?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for the invite. Good luck with the pod.
Thank you so much.